Sure.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to tonight's session with Test Automation using UiPath Test Suite Developer Series. And if you want to go to the next slide. Yeah, as in the same in the last sessions, but my name is Diana Gray. I'm the Community Marketing Manager for the Americas, and I'll turn it over to Atul to introduce himself.
Then would you like to go to the next few slides?
Sure. So tonight during the developer community session, we just want you to know that this is being run by our MVPs in Canada, Latin America, and the USA. And you're encouraged to network with the MVPs and share your LinkedIn in the chat box because we really want to get to know you. These are developer sessions, and we're hoping you can participate and we can engage with you to find out really what your interests are, what other topics you're interested in. So you please use the chat place to put any questions or topics you're interested in, anything you'd like to see us cover in the future. And here's my email address. I'll put that in the chat too as well. If you want to just email me directly and let me know. And if you go to the next slide. I also wanted just to call your attention. We have a hyper hack going on right now. It's joined the Global Automation Challenge. So if you're interested in that, you can go to community.uipath.com and find out more about that. And if you go to the next slide, and if you know of people who are just starting out in RPA, we want you to know this is a very amazing program. It's all for free, and it starts this next Tuesday at 3 o'clock Eastern, but it's our Hello Summer, Hello RPA. It's the RPA Summer School program. It's two completely different sessions. It's one session is on Studio, and that's 4 nights. And then another session is on Studio X. And again, our MVPs are going to be hosting these sessions. So if somebody's just starting out, we'd love to see you join. And you can find out more information about this as well on community.uipath.com. And if you go to the next slide. Yeah, and lastly, thank you for joining us for this series. Tonight is our third part of the series, and we'll have one more next Tuesday night at 5 Eastern. So we hope you all enjoyed this, and next week we'll also be introducing what our next series is. So welcome, and I'll turn it over to Atul.
Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Then are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. My name is Atul Trikha. I am the UiPath MVP 2022, as well as I'm the Columbus chapter leader for UiPath. In addition to that, I work for Peloton as a chief account technologist and RP architect. This is the part 3 of our UiPath test automation using UiPath Test Suite. So today, what we are going to, like in the last 2 sessions, we started with the very building blocks, going to the very basics, what is software testing is all about, levels, types, a very high level on introduction to the test suite. In the part 2, we went deep enough into each of the 4 components for the UiPath Test Suite family. We went into the orchestrator, studio, robots, as well as the test manager. And at a high level, I've shared some document how to set up the accounts or where to get started. We talked about registering into UiPath if you have already not done that, and create an account in UiPath. And then also for the demo purposes, the sessions that we are going through, we are using Azure DevOps. So I have shared a document how we can sign up in Azure DevOps and create an organization, because that is what we are going to follow today. So today meeting is going to be about hands-on. We will be running and showing how those test automation, how we can do different kind of test automation capability within the UiPath Test Suite. It is going to be, everything will be at runtime, so please expect some errors, hit and trial, because sometimes in the and you're working that. We have a very limited time, so let's see how it will go. But it is going to be no slides. It's totally going to be a hands-on experience of the different test suite capabilities. So by saying that, let me jump into one of the document first. And then if you can please confirm you're able to see my document.
Yes, I can.
Perfect. So in this demo, we will be, or in this today's session, we will be doing some hands-on exercise on the RPA testing, or we will be going into the application testing, API testing. But before we jump into those individual topics, I want to share what is the setup that I'm using in our today's session, because this is very important. And the main challenge when you start, you will find so many videos or links or references on how to do test automation, but where sometimes you may struggle is where to start in end-to-end test automation. So I'll spend some time in going through the environment that I'm using, because it's very important to me. I mean, personally, based upon my experience, this is something which you will find very less articles, or you need to jump into various references to get that data. So I have tried my best to have everything in this document, and I will be sharing this document along with the other the ends when slide with the presentation. We'll be sharing this one along with that. So first is the setup that I'm using is I'm assuming that you have already signed into the Automation Hub, and in this environment for this POC, I'm using the enterprise trial, because that gives us the capability to have 5 unattended testing robots and different kind of as well as compared to the community version, which only allows 1 license. So for this demo, I'm using the enterprise trial, and this is how automation cloud, when you have signed, it will look like. So this is my first environment that I'm going to use. The second one is I'm assuming that you have already downloaded and installed the UiPath Studio, and this is how a studio looks like. Let me shift it, move it here. So this is how your UiPath Studio will look like. The third thing is, like, once you are done registering in the UiPath Automation Cloud, and then you have already downloaded and installed the studio, the next step is to connect your studio with the orchestrator. I'll try to quickly cover all this one, and if anyone has any question on a specific topic, let me know. But I will try to cover as soon as possible, because our main agenda is to go into the test automation. But I don't want to jump around this one, because you may face challenge if you are like, I mean, going through the test automation suite for the very first time. So after downloading from your studio, you need to, the first thing you need to do is you need to connect your studio with the orchestrator. It's pretty straightforward. There is what we call the UiPath assistant, and let me bring that one also. This is how it looks like. All you need to do is, if you have already not connected, go to the profile, your name, and click on the preferences, and that will bring you another screen, something like this one. And from here, you need to go to the orchestrator setting, and then you need to provide the URL of your orchestrator, which you will find it here, anything. And when you click on here, Automation Cloud, and you can go to the orchestrator services. And this is where the URL that I'm using is the one up to this part, underscore. So this is the URL that you need to use in order to connect your studio with the orchestrator. This is what I have done so far. And after that, the next thing is to create a test automation project, which is very simple. All you will do is, if you have not already done that, click on your UiPath Studio. Once the studio is launched, you have various options that it will show you, starting from the, where is my studio? Okay, so you have seen various options here. You can create a process that normally, when we refer to the RPA testing, you may use this process. When we are talking about test automation, that is the process that you need to create. You need to start with test automation, but then there are many other, like if you are talking about RE framework, so I'll not go into this one, but our main two processes that we will be discussing today is the process and the test automation. Mostly we'll be focusing on the test automation. That's the one that I'm referring. So you will click on the test automation, give it a name, a proper location where you want to store it, and a description. So that is the step number second, where you have already downloaded the studio, connected the studio with the orchestrator. Now you have created a test automation project and give it a name and a brief description about that project. You can choose which language you want to use for your test automation. In this demo, I'm using the VB, which is the default one. After you have connected to this one, you have created a new project, a test automation project in Studio. The next thing you need to do is, is to connect, or you add your source control, this project, into a source control. So for this demo, I'm using the Azure DevOps. As you can see, in the previous meeting, in the previous event, we talked about creating a Azure DevOps account, and we talked about creating a organization. So I'm in the same organization which we have gone through in the last time. All I'm doing is within that organization, I have created a project and I am inside that project. This is the test suite demo project. And what I'm doing is I'm showing you the repository. Currently, it is when you will start, it will be blank. The most important step here is, which I missed out a couple of times when I was starting, is don't forget to generate a Git credential. If you're starting for the first time, make sure you hit on this generate Git credential button. This is the very important step. If you missed, then you need to do various other steps to get into that one. But when you are in this step, click on generate Git credentials, and what it will do is it will show you this screen where it will ask you to enter a username and a password. So you will enter your username and password it is generate for you, and then this is the one that we require for the next step. So generate the Git credentials, and then we will go back to our studio. In studio, the next step what we are trying to do is the test automation project that we have just created, we want to add into our source control. So you will go into the properties here, where right click on your project, click on add to source control, and hit on the get init button. So what it is going to do is, basically what we are trying to do is we are trying to add our project into a source control. What the advantages are, and like any source control, it will allow multiple users to work on a single project. And then you have in a repository, even if you for any reason lose your machine, for any reason, you can still get all the source code sitting in a cloud location. So that's what we did. It will ask you to check in all the files that you have created. Somebody is not on mute. If I request, then can you please check on that one? Okay, so then what you need to do next step is you need to click on commit and push button. So at this stage, it will ask you what is the name of your repository that you want to create, and what is the URL that you are creating. Then I think somebody is not in mute. If you can please help me in with that. I can hear the background noises.
Yeah, I'm gonna put everybody on mute, and then can you unmute yourself really quick, Atul?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. So now in this step, we are giving a name for the test automation or our repository. One more additional step, which I forgot to mention, is when you are creating your this credential, just copy the URL that is here, because this is the URL of the project that we want to connect our project to. So once I did that, I'm pasting the same URL, which I've just copied, a name of that repository, and then just click on the save button. So this is what I've did. I have connected my studio or my project that I've just test automation project into the Git repository. So hit on the save button, and then it will ask you to enter the credential. Again, this is very important. These are the credentials that we have created here. Most of the time when you miss that one for the first time, this is the important step. Make sure you have created your Git credentials, because this is required when you are connecting you are putting your source control or the test automation project to the source control. hit OK, and then if you will go back to your repository in the Azure DevOps, you will see all the files that you have created is now available under the repository in Azure DevOps. So this is the step where you will be creating a test automation project and adding that project into the Git. Now, that is step number 2. Now we will be talking about, we have created a test automation project. We have connected our studio with Orchestrator. We have created a project in our Azure DevOps. We have linked to those two projects using our repository. Now, the next step is to connect Studio to the test manager. Okay, and what if we remember, we discussed about that, what is the purpose of connecting Studio with the test manager is. Now if you are creating a, it is all about requirement, right? I mean, when we are creating a test automation, whether it's around a web application or any other one, we need to make sure that each of the requirement, which is the final goal of test automation, about the test management. What is the purpose of test management? Because we want to make sure that answer a question, are we ready for release, right? And how we can answer that, we want to make sure that all our requirements are meeting the expectations. And how we can do that, we will need to trace the requirements, and that is where the test manager will come into picture. So that is the reason we are connecting our studio to the test manager. And that is what you need to do, is go to the test manager, which is right here. Let me see if I can go here. And from here, you will click on test manager. And from test manager, once you are here, you will click on create a new project. Once you've done that, it will give you option, the few fields that you need to enter, give the name of that project, a prefix, which is any test case that you will create. It will be prefixed with that the three character the key that we are creating. So I've given a unique key for that name, and then a brief description about the test project that we are creating. Once you are done with that, the next step is the project will be created, and then we need to link our project, test manager project, with the studio. How you will do that? Go to your studio and click on the test manager setting. If you will see here, let me go back. I'll cancel this one. I'll use the existing project here. So if you are here, you will see option of test manager, which I was showing in the document for the first time, like it is creating. You will click on the test manager setting, and what it will do is it will ask you to provide the URL of the test manager. So once you provide the URL of your test manager, and then you will hit on the connect button, and then it will say that it's connected. But you can by default also provide a default project that you are working. So once you will start typing on the default project here, it will list down all the projects that you have created in your test manager. In this case, I'm using the test suite demo. So it will give that option, Studio will give that option to select that project that it will use by default. So hit on that one and you are all set. You are now connected. Your Studio is connected with the test manager. So this is step number 3. Step number 4 is to connect your test manager with the Azure DevOps. There are multiple ways, like, I mean, we talked about that in the previous session, that let's say a requirement, not though UiPath Test Manager has the capability where you can start creating your requirements. Like if I'll go here, you can start creating your requirements here, right? But many times those you're in your enterprise, you are using a different tools like Jira or Azure DevOps, and you want to leverage some additional ALM tool for the requirement, and that is where it provides the capability, test manager, to integrate with that ALM tool. I'll not go into detail into this particular topic, because in the last meeting I have shared one document which will walk through step by step how you can connect that. But at a high level, click on the project setting, click on the integration, select the ALM tool of your choice. In this demo, I'm using Azure DevOps, and then you will go through that, create a project, create the API key, and then you will select how you want, what are the different requirement types you want to capture. Click on save button, and then you will be all set. Your test manager will get connected with the ALM tool. Fifth setup that I'm doing is, this is for the CI/CD, especially for the RPA testing. If you are developing a lot of automation, You want to make sure that anyone, if make any changes, the trigger, it automatically triggers the test cases in like what you call in CI/CD, continuous integration and development. So what in order to do that, you need to do is you need to create your firstly you need to go into the your services, your orchestrator, and from there you need to get all these details, because these are the details. And how you will get that, let me actually show you that also. If you will go back to your orchestrator here, hit on the admin, and where is my admin here? Yeah, this is sometimes hard to find because most of the time whenever you are creating external API, it will ask you about your tenant, local tenant ID, or your credentials. So how you will get there, click on the admin and then expand this section, and you will see different services that you have enrolled in, right? So what you need to do is, the most important is click on this particular cloud icon which shows API access. Hit on this one, and that is where it will show you. I don't want to actually share my those information, so let me take that in a separate screen till it loads. But these are the credentials you will get hold of, where it will give you a user key, it will give you the organization ID, the tenant name, client ID. So you need to copy all those information and move to the next step. Now you are back into the Azure DevOps, because we are using Azure for our CI/CD integration. This is will be helpful, really helpful. So you need to first do is click on the service connection in your Azure DevOps project and search for the UiPath in the service new connection. What it will give you, it will filter out the inbuilt UiPath orchestrated connection plugin. So you need to select that plugin, and then it will ask you to fill out these details. And how you will get those details, I just mentioned in the previous details. You will get hold of the URL, your account name, API key, tenant, everything, which I will bring it back here. So these are all the information that we will get from here. For example, client ID, tenant ID, organization ID. So you will get here and you will enter all this information here. And what it will do is it will create a connection. The Azure DevOps will now connect with your orchestrator. So after doing that, you need to create a CI/CD pipeline. You will go to the pipeline. You have already created a repository here in the step number 3rd or maybe 2nd. Your repository is created. Now you need to create a pipeline here. What you will do here is you will click on the pipeline and click on create pipeline here. And then the very first thing is it will ask you where is your source code, right? And if you remember, we talked about I have added my UiPath automation project in the repository. So you will choose that project under Git here. You can choose GitHub also if you have just chosen that option for your repository, but I have you choose Git. So you will give that particular, select the Azure DevOps Git repository, and then it will present you or show you your project that you have created. In this case, Test Suite demo. I will choose that, and then the next step is to create a pipeline. So as a if you have some friend, or maybe you can get many of those references from the UiPath forms, how to create that. If you already have an existing YAML file, you can use that. Otherwise, you can click on the starter pipeline. It will give you the base structure that you require to create your pipeline. So this is how it will look like. The first thing you need to do is change your VM image to instead of Ubuntu, you can use the Windows. That's what I did in this for this demo. So that's the first change which I did. And after that, if you click on the show assistant, it will give you all the plugins that are available. Click on type the UiPath, then it will filter down all the plugins that we have for the available for the UiPath. You need to create 3-1. One is the let me zoom it a little bit. So here I'm using 3-1 in a sequence. The first one is to pack, test, and deploy. That these are the 3-1 that I'm using in sequence. And then there are a very nice article or a link, if I can share with this one, where you will get all this detail, what goes in each parameter. If you will search simply with the connect UiPath, use CI/CD with Azure DevOps in the UiPath, there's a detailed article, step-by-step instruction to do that. but that is the one step that I'm giving here, and I can share also this YAML which I'm using for the CI/CD. So that is where you will create your pipeline. The one thing, just as an additional note, is once you will try to run this pipeline, if this is the first time you're creating your, even you have created your Azure account, you will get this error that no hosted parallelism has been purchased or granted. What you need to do is a very simple process. They will give you a link. Click on that link, and you will enter your details, email and name and other details, and your organization ID, and then hit on the submit button. It will take around 2 business days, and within 2 business days they will grant you the required parallelisms that will help you in running your CI/CD in Azure DevOps in a community or the free account. So that's what I did is, and this is just additional step. Sometimes you may face if you are using test automation. If you are new to this one, you also need to create your robots. And what I'm doing is I'm using the AWS EC2 instance as a virtual machine for adding a test robot. How I did that? If this is my account, what I'm doing is clicking on the machines. If you have already not done that, click on the machine template. And older version, when you are to using the classic approach or the classic folder, you can use standard machine, but it will show you a notification that it is going to be soon outdated. So you need to choose the machine template here. Once you, and there are multiple options here, like I mean recently UiPath has launched the VMs or the serverless, so we can cover that in some other topic, but as of now I'm using the machine template here, and I'm assigning a couple of licenses from my enterprise trial version. The most important one is the testing one. So you need to, when you're creating this machine, you need to make sure that you allocate the license here. Otherwise it will show that it is connected but unlicensed. So you need to do that and click on provision. It will create a machine for you, and you need to copy the client ID or the machine key and the secret which it will generate. You need to make sure you copy both of them, because it will not show you that options once you pass the step. And once you did that, it will you will go back here, and it will show, possibly it will show you the still a warning that it is connected. If you will see this yes yellow error, it is say that it is connected but unable to retrieve a license. If you see this error, all you need to do is go back to your orchestrator, click on your default folder, and then you need to click on the machines, and the machine template that we have just created, assign that one, and after that you will be all connected and all set. So this is the setup that is very, very important if you are new to test automation. I'll share this document. It covers end to end what it will take, even in an enterprise level. Most of the steps will take remains the same, right from connecting to your EC2 for test robots, connecting test manager, CI/CD line, and anything that is around the test automation. So now coming to our main topic. So we have connected, all the environment is there. Now let's get back to the studio. So the
Atul,
very,
can you
yes,
take a few questions
sure,
before you go to the
definitely.
next step?
Yes,
The
yes.
first one is, can we not have UiPath testing in Studio 2020.10?
Uh, can we not have can you repeat that?
UiPath testing in Studio 2020.10.
Testing means like this the test automation capability. Are we talking about that? If we are talking about test automation capability, it has the UiPath Studio. It is called Studio Pro. If I understood the question correctly, it is called Studio Pro in the previous versions. Now everything is integrated as part of Studio itself. And for any reason, if you can't see that, let me go back into this example. This is the process that I'm using. If you don't see the like I mean those test capability, you can always go back into your managed packages and look for the package which is here, UiPath testing. If you will go to the official and search for testing, it will show you the required package, UiPath testing activities. If I got the question right, that is where is the testing activities. But with Studio, you
That was
will
my
get.
question. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
Yeah, and then just one more question is, how does this work with on-premise orchestrator?
So the on-prem is the same, like orchestrator. It is the same thing. Nothing will change here. You will get let me go back here. So it will be exactly same. I use for my enterprise, we use the on-prem. Nothing changes. You will still see the test manager here. You will still see the orchestrator here as is. So nothing basically changed. All the setup, all the steps that I've given through, it remains same for the prem or as well as the cloud one also. I don't recall even a single step that will be different.
And this is, say, this works with 2020 .10, right?
Yes, I'm honestly, I mean, I am using always use the latest version, but as far as my memories goes, I when I started test automation, I didn't face much challenges using the 2010. But again, as you see, a lot of features are coming every month, right? I mean, that is the beauty of this one.
Mhm.
Every month you will see a bulk of features are coming. It is improving every day. So I mean, I remember working in 2020, 2010. There are less features but will not stop you in going through that. There are few connectors which I'm not sure when they started. It was Jira was the only connector that was available, but I am not sure whether the Azure Dev is also available during that one. But that is the only thing. But the steps will remain almost the same.
Sounds good.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Atul.
Any further question or can I move?
No, you can go on. Thanks.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So this is your canvas or the platform or the ID, various name, how where you will start doing your automation. The first step, let's talk about the RPA testing first, right? What is RPA testing? RPA testing is you have already created a workflow or an automation, right? But you don't want to send anything in production. Let's say that process is about creating an account, right? You get an email with a Excel sheet which has thousands of accounts that needs to be created, right? So you have automated that process using the RPA or using UiPath, right? And now let's go to that process here. So this process is all about, I have created some multiple as a best practices. Whenever you are dealing with the RPA, always try to create small process, not everything in one big giant workflow. That is the advice I'll give to any newcomers, that always try to split your functionality into smaller workflows. For example, this is the process I have created for login. This is the process I have created for logout. So you always create process that goes into individual smaller units, so that if you have to change something, if something is not working in login, I don't need to go back and change my whole create new process here, right? So if you will see here, I have invoked the different workflows rather than writing everything in this one. It gives, believe me or not, I mean, in my experience, it will drastically change how you develop your automation. So that's what I did. I'm invoking smaller workflow in my automation here. And then what this process is doing, it is about creating a new account process. So let's go through this process. What this process is doing is, firstly, it is invoking a process called the get UI bank app credentials. So what this automation looks like is simply, I'm using the existing UiPath activity to get the credentials, and where my credentials are stored. If you will go back into your orchestrator, and this is again a good practice, never hard code your credentials, always store them in your assets. And if you will go here and you click on assets and create new asset, and here you can choose the type as credential, and that is how you can save your credentials. So this is what I exactly did. I'll leave this page. So this is where my credentials are setting. One another tip here is, like, sometimes what you forget is you start creating your credential in a different folders. In an enterprise setup, you may have various folders here, right? So sometimes even when you are trying it out, there's a very likely you may get into the same issue. You have not selected the right folder. Let's say you started creating your credential in a different folder, and then it is showing you error that, okay, this asset not found. So make sure you select your right folder where you are, you have connected your orchestrator and you have done all the connections, and create your asset there. So that's what I did. And this is the first step that I'm doing here is getting my credentials, my username and password from the UiPath orchestrator assets. The next step I'm doing here is I'm invoking my login process, if you will see here. And what this login process is doing is it start from, and I'll show you why it is showing green. So what this process is doing is it is firstly going to the Chrome, opening a browser. And I'm using, for this particular demo, I'm using the classic approach. So if you are not aware, UiPath provides two type, you can do automation in two ways. One is the classical approach, which is what I'm showing. You need to click on the drag and drop your activities. For example, here I'm using the Chrome browser, dragging and dropping that open browser activity, and then providing all the details. In the latest approach, which let me see if I have an example here. Okay, if it opens that. So this activity is using the modern approach. What is the difference? Here, everything is in the object repository. It is far advanced than the classic approach. But again, everything comes with the pros and cons, right? I personally, depending upon if I have to do so many dynamic things, I prefer to use the classic approach. But if my selectors are not, if they keep on changing or more things which are more complex and I need to rely on images and all those things, I try to use the modern approach. But again, totally your call when to use classic approach versus modern. We can maybe have another session or request some other MVP to go through that. But I will show you both the approach. In the main approach, I'm using the classic approach, dragging and dropping open Chrome browser activity. And then I'm using the three activities here, which is one is to type username. One is to, again, this is another just tips for that. I'm using the secure password activity here. Sometimes if you will try to use the same type into activity, it will accept only the password in a string plain format, right? And you don't want to reveal your password to anyone, right? That's where I'm using the secure. But even let's say, I mean, in the old, if you have to, if you are somebody, some existing processes asking to provide you in a password in a plain string format, there's a very single line of code which I can show you here, because these are the challenges that sometimes I used to face. So just those, adding those tips so that we don't miss it. Convert secure string to plain text, and this is the activity you have. Is a very straightforward, and for these type of issues, if you ever face it, UiPath Forms is the best place to look for those answers. You will get each and every details about these kind of examples. For example, this is the when I searched about convert secure string to string in the UiPath Forms, you will get that answer, and it's very simple. It's just a one line of code. You need to use system.net.network credential and pass your secure string, and it will convert that into the plain text string. So UiPath Forms is a is a very like your first fallback or way to go, where you will find most of the answers of any issue that you're facing within the UiPath. So in this example, I'm just using the type username password, click on that button. This is my login activity. And after that, what I'm doing is where I am. Yep. And then what I did to showcase how to show the UiPath coverage. That is where, I mean, I don't need to, but just to show how the UiPath coverage capability, I have added a decision block here where I'm inputting what kind of account I want to create, whether I want to create a checking account or a saving account. And what does that mean actually? Let's look into that one. So for this environment, for this demo, I'm using a UiPath bank. And this is, if you're new to the automation, even test automation, there are a set of like applications that UiPath provides or they have created, which will help you in expediting your or more focusing on the automation or test automation. So you don't need to worry about creating those apps. If you will go into the let me where's demo apps, they have an app for UiPath Bank, which I will be using in this demo. There are some other apps like RPA Challenge. Then there is Find Unicorn Name. Depending upon your effort or your use case, if you don't have any existing app, there is a bunch of apps that UiPath provides, even Windows app, web apps that you can use for trying out your automation. So similar way, I'm using the UiPath Bank app. You will be able to register when you will go into that one. You will see a register for account, and these are the credentials that I've used in that one. So why I'm going through that, this is the process that I want to demonstrate in RPA testing is to create a new account. What you need to do is in the process, click on the apply new account, provide the username, the name of the account and the account type here, and click on the apply button, and that is where your account will be created. So, but if you see here, there are two options, checking and saving. In your use case, let's say I want to make sure that the user is able to create a checking account and a saving account. That is where this checkbox is, this decision point is. And once you input your account type, what it is going to do is it will invoke another process called apply new account. And all I'm doing is going into that account page. You can add all this activity under a attached browser also. So then it will be all your selectors will be get a partial selector, but I'm just for demo's purpose, I'm not adding this under any browser so that we can show you that how the selectors look like. It is a full selectors that you will get here. But this activity is about creating, good navigating into accounts page, and then from there add the enter the account name, enter the account type, click on the hit button apply new account, and fetch the account ID from the process, because this is how we'll verify that the account is created or not. So these are the processes that I'm using here, and after that I'm simply invoking the logout process. Now, if you will see here, this is the automation you have created, and the use case here is you are receiving an email where you have an Excel sheet with thousands of record, and you have to automate or create accounts in a UiPath Bank app. So this is the automation project that you have created, but how you will ensure that this process is working as is expected. Not only that, how you will ensure that you have covered 100% coverage in your testing, right? As of now, I have run this process only with this green. If you will see this green path, what it is showing is, it is showing me that during the case, I've created a test which I deleted. I'll show you how to create, but it is showing that when I ran my test cases, it only covered this path. I have not created any use case which is going into the apply new account under saving path. And how I did that? Let's say you have already created this flow here, workflow here. There are two ways to now create a test case. In this process, I'm using the process, not the test automation project. So that is another important point. If you will try to click on your workflow, and if you don't see an option here at create test cases, and if you don't see options like test manager, what you are missing is you are missing a package which is called the testing package. So make sure that if you are using a test process here, you need to add the UiPath testing activity here, which I have just added here, and you will see here in the dependency. Once you do that, if you will right click on your process and click on create test case, see what it will do. This is the very first step of creating your test automation. It will ask you to give a name. You can give, and there are certain good practices that how you name your test case, which will cover in our part 4. So for now, I will simply create that, create new account test case. It should not be like, don't follow this particular naming convention, because I'm going to cover in part 4, where I will go through what is the best naming convention for creating a test case. The other thing, the other capability that UiPath provides is there may be many applications which may not be available in the test environment or a dev environment, right? For that purposes, what you can do is you can use the mock workflow. This is what we have covered in the previous session. What is the mock capability in the UiPath? So this is basically being used when you don't have the actual application. So you can click on that one and create a mock workflow. In this demo, will not create it, and we'll simply go into the next one. And now it will present you, because if you remember in the last part, we covered about a test case. For a good test case, you need to provide a variation of data, right? And if you are not providing a lot of variation in your test case, then it may be possible that you have only covered a part of your testing, right? That is where it is very important to provide, whenever you're creating a test case, give a lot of variations in your test cases. But the question here is how you will get that variation, right? So UiPath provides various ways to capture or get the test data, and this is where you will get all the options. One, if you have already in some other use case or other test case, you have already created a data, that is where you will get this option, existing data. If I'll click this one, you will see no option, there's no test data that I've already created. But if you have already created something, you will see that particular entity here. The other option is file. This is the most common one. What it does is it gives you option to go ahead and select that in an Excel sheet. Let me go back here. I have created two sheets here. And where is this is my data here. This is just an example of what that Excel sheet will look like. Nothing fancy here. It is simply a collection of your rows and columns where you can specify that, okay, this is the field I'm going to use for loan term or any other. Similarly, you can create another Excel sheet. For example, here, a new Excel sheet where you can specify the first column as your account name, and the second is account type. And then you can provide that your account name is simply, let's say, test account, and the account type is checking. Similar way, let's say, call it test account 1, and we'll drag it and drop and make sure we have enough data here. We'll create 5 records, and then a couple of them with all this one. Let's change it to savings. Let's change it to savings. So this is all the data we need in this particular use case. Very simple. Create an Excel sheet and then give it a name. Click on here, save, and we can choose here, go back to the browse, and I will save this Excel sheet here in my project and call it as account data. Oops, I gave it a wrong name. Let me go and fix that one. Okay, so I will rename it and we'll go back. What I'm doing here today, sorry about that. Sorry, let me go back and restore that file. Okay. Sorry about that. And here is my, and I don't want to have this one. Okay, so this is the file which we have just created, which has all the data, and we need this for our testing purpose. So what I'm going to do here is I'm simply selecting that particular file here, account data, and click open. And that what it is going to do is it is going to get all the records that you have just saved in your Excel sheet into this one. And all you need to do is create. So this will create all the different variation of your test data for this particular test case. And if you will see here, all your data will be sitting somewhere here, account data. The disadvantage of using this one is if you have to modify or change your data variation, which we have covered in the last chapter, Excel sheet may be not the right way. So then in that case, where you can leverage is the entities. That is where, let me actually move that into test case and show you that capability also, how you can do that. Create test case here, we'll give it a name, create new account test case using entities. And please don't follow the naming convention. I'm just showing for demo purpose, but I'll cover that in next chapter. But here, if you will see, we just covered the file. The next service are the data services. This is the recent feature, not recent, very recent, but I mean, couple of months back. This is the data service where you can create entities, where I will go here and with the screen here. So you have this data services where you can create entities like I have created here, a couple of them, one for account, for loan. And you can also import and export those entities. Simply click on that. If you have already created, it is all in the JSON format. Very easy to create. Click on the data service, give it a name, and then you can click on save. And once you do that, it will go into the test entity, and then it will create a couple of auto-generated fields, and then you can start creating your fields, whatever you like, for example, name or ID, and then you can define what type of that field that is going to be. I'll not go much into data service, but this is a very great to store your test data, and that is what we can use here. So I have already created a couple of entities here, and if you will go back here, this has all the data, but I'm not creating any data here. But the another way of doing is to create, go here, click on add data, and it will give you all the name. For example, I'm creating here is ET1, just type text, and I'll say the type is checking account, and this is my first record. Similar way, like how we have created an Excel sheet, you can add data very conveniently in this one, and it is, let's say, ET2, and then I can call it savings, and that's it. So this is how you can create all your data, and then again you can use your ETL or SQL queries to import or put the data into data services. But this is how you will create your entities. I'm assuming here, once your data is created, all you need to go back into the previous case and select the entity where it has the data. For example, I'm selecting here, clicking on accounts, and I will simply create on create. What it will do is it will import the entity as well as your data. So now this data can be used for your test data versioning. And it is as simple as that. Now you have all the data, that is either you use data service, you use Excel sheet, and then there are UiPath orchestrator queues also that you can use, which we have covered in the last meeting, how you can use the those queues also. But this is the most important part, because without a good variations, your test case is of no use. And that is where it will, you will see here, entities get like similar way. The Excel sheet got created under the test data here. You have your RPA entity that we have just created will be available here, and it has all the data. So that we have just created, and if you will see here, a variable will automatically get created into your account, which will have all the data that you have created. And all you need to do is now, in a given when, then you can specify how that data will be. And then in the then variable, like if you will go back to activities, we will go to the testing, and we have covered in a very high level, these are the different verification activities. For example, in this particular case, if you want to make sure that after a account is created, you want to verify that that account exists. I have not automated that, but like in this example, I'm simply creating an account and just signing it out. So that is how you can use the given when then, which is based upon the BDD pattern, where you define that if given this data, when you execute a process, then how the application should work. So all the test automation is based upon the BDD pattern, and you will get the structured out when you create a test case here. So coming back to the one example, we don't have much time. I'll go back to the existing example here. But when you will execute your test case here, which is here, you need to make sure that, let me move these two test cases here. You need to make sure that you convert those two test cases as set as publishable. So I will use both here, publishable. And then if you will go here, it is looking for some parameters, and how you will get that parameters. If you will see here in the argument, you're already getting that in the variables. Yeah, in argument, you will already get those parameters here. So by default, I have provided this one. And if I will execute this workflow here, Let's do that. Debug. Let's save all the files, and I'm clicking on run file. So I want to run this test case, and you will see here now the automation will run. It will supposed to open the UiPath Bank app. And where is my test case? Why it's not running? Oh yeah, it's running. See, it is opening the UiPath Bank app. I did one mistake here. Let me log out quickly. So I need to run this test case again because I was showing you. Let me stop this use case and run it again. Where is my use case? Sorry about this mistake. So let's close this one out and go back to our process. And let's run this one more time. The mistake which I have not did made much attention, that normally when you do automation, you make sure that any existing app is already closed, or if it is error, you have forcefully closing it. I have just created a few minutes back, so I haven't put that much clean code here, but let's go run it again. So now it is supposed to open the bank app and take it from there. Yep. So now it is opening the app. It is supposed to enter the username and password. What is happening here? What I did wrong here? Let me go back. Why it got stuck there? Okay, let me put a pause here. We don't have but what is supposed to do here is we can actually do a debug here. Let's do that. So create new is calling the create new account process, which is right here. So let's debug this process. Why it is not running? So step into not this one. I want to step the other one. Let me stop this process because what I want to debug is the other one, create test case. So it will go here, create new account. We have closed the applications, I believe. If not, let's do that. And it will go into the workflow and it will invoke the get credentials. So I will skip over that. And then it will do the login, which we have seen that it is doing the login, or maybe it is stopping at the login page. Yeah. So let's see why it is failing here. Let's debug this process. I have the argument as in username, password. These are my, okay, so let's put a debug point here, breakpoint. And let's go back to the test case and run one more time. It is supposed to add your credentials here. For some reason it's not doing, but let's see why it is not, because you may face these kind of issues if you are new to the automation. And pardon, I didn't get much time to actually create this whole test this one. So I'm also testing for the first time here. So okay, get this one. We know that it is taking it fine. And let's see whether we are getting the credentials. If you will look into your locals here. So I am getting the username and the password. So this is the username and password getting from the credentials. So this process is working fine. So let's go into the login and it should invoke my browser. So this is working fine. So what is the next step? I'll move into the next window so that I can show you. I'm clicking on the step into, and this is where it is supposed to enter in the username. And it is failing in my that page. So let's see what's happening. So basically it is failing at this step where I'm not able to, the user is not able to find the selector here. So let's see what we did wrong here. I'll click on edit selector and let's see whether it is validated or not. So this is the problem. If you will see my selector, it is not able to find the selector here, right? And let's see why it is happening. If my selector is here and all I'm saying is find the username field. And let's see here, what is the challenge here? So I'm opening the UI Explorer here. And I'm, Diana, do we have some times or should we stop here? I know we have
No.
not covered much. So what you suggest here?
Yeah, I would keep going on this and let's see if you can figure this out. And
Yeah,
then we
sure.
can open it up for questions. Anything else we might be able to cover first of next week?
Sure, we can start from there. So the selector here is UI bank, and that is I'll continue on this one. And as a good practice, whenever you're creating selector, I normally try to use the UiPath Explorer, because I'll tell you the difference here. If you will simply try to use a selector from this one, and this is again my practice, you don't need to follow that. This is what I follow. So if you will try to indicate an element like here, and if you will go back to your selector here, let me close this. Somewhere it is hiding that. I may need to close this one because I'm not able to see where is my. There is some icon hidden here. So where is that one? So I need to close or forcefully close my studio because I'm not able to find where my. It is not letting me do that because I've just selected a selector here. It is supposed to come back. So why it is not here? Okay, so let me forcefully close that. I don't know what we will lose it, but I think we need to do that. It normally doesn't happen. It never happened to me. This is the first time. I don't know why my selector hanged the system. So let's try that again.
That's
And
just so you
all,
can show us how to fix it.
yeah, this is how, yeah, this every time the challenge comes, it's always something you can take out from those exceptions also. So this is the studio that I was using. So good point, Dinah. Yes, so let's see, we have not lost much. Yeah, entities here, so we are good here. And we were facing the challenge where our selector was not working. So let it wait for a minute and I will open the workflow, which was a simple workflow about the bank app, and it's the login process. And this was the selector that was facing error edit selector. And the reason I was trying to show you that, if you will go here and if you will try to select indicate element here with this default, what you will see here is it does not, it will only give you a selected like the tag here input, right? But I want a more like a foolproof, or like more uh I'm lacking the word here, but the point here is I want a better selector here, and how I can do that instead of using that one, I will open the UiPath Explorer, which will give you much more options than what you are getting by default. So this is the practice which I follow. And if I'll show the Explorer here, indicate the UiPath UI Explorer. And if you will use that and click on your element here, it will give you many more properties by default, right? Not only the one which is by default getting selected. So what you can do is you can make a more better selector by, for example, I want to use a ID here in my username, right? And if I'll click validate, what is happening? Why the user ID is not okay? Let's do that. Let's about the AA name. That is interesting. This is right here. And let's do that. Indicate element. Do I have multiple banks open here? And that may be the reason. Okay. Oh man, you know what was the reason? If you have noticed that there were multiple browsers that were open in which one was already logged in. So that was the issue. And that was the reason every time I was opening or showing the selector, it was failing. So now it should work. So even if I add a ID here, it will still able to validate that. So if I will run my automation now without making any changes, it should work. I'll just make sure that I have not opened so many of these web browsers here. I'll close all of them. My account was, and in a normal, when you actually create your automation, it is a good practice when you start your automation, make sure you close your application and you have all the close. And if you are familiar with the RE framework, it gives you the all the framework that will ask you to kill the processes if there's any exception, or gracefully come out of those or close your applications. So that is what I'm doing. I have closed all the apps so far, I believe, for the UiPath Bank app. And let's give it another run for the test cases that we have created. And hopefully it should work this time without any issue. So click run file and let's see how it works. Uh-oh, I was moved here many times. So see here, that's how your automation is working. It is clicking on this one and again, this fight with this issue apply button, but it has done that. And if I go back to my case here, there was some again issue with the apply button, but if I go back here into my workflow, that is where, if you remember in the initial stage, it was showing you that green and a red path that was coming from that account, that if you have taken coverage, full coverage about your account, all the processes that you're supposed to go through, it will show you that green line. And I don't know why it failed again on the apply button, but that is where it will show you the coverage that this whole path is already covered. So similar way, I mean, we did face one or two challenges here in showing you, demonstrating this one. Maybe we can cover in our next meeting. But the main point here is when you will create your test case with your automation, you can provide the data variation. And when your test cases, you can define the given when then scenario in what conditions your test case will pass. And we can cover what where we left for. I think we have not gone through the API testing and other testing of it. And but in this account, it will you can have your coverage where it will show you the green path which was initially giving, because I have not covered the check-in path scenario. So UiPath has the capability when you are doing the RPA testing, it will give you the options where you can create your data variations, you can create your mock screens, mock workflows, and you can also add the capability where you can be able to see the coverage, how many coverage or how many conditions your workflow is creating by creating the different workflow. Similar way, the RPA testing I have shown you, every other testing, the rules are pretty much same. For example, here in this example, I have created a workflow. What this workflow is using is, it is creating a API. For example, this is an API example. What I'm doing is I'm again using the UiPath activity for the web activities here to call a service which returns a, let's go here. So what it does is it gives you a format. Again, it will give you an API which will, you will send some parameters and it will return whether the passenger exists or not. So this is the API, and this is again I'm using a dummy API here, but this is how it will go. And if you will see the API which I have used here is called this one, the API. This is the API that you can also use for your testing. I'm just using it as a dynamic selector here, but if you will come here one, it will give you the required airlines, or if you will like here, it will give you all the APIs that are available here in this version. So yeah, so you can use the same API tool or API app to create your API testing. That's what I'm doing here is I'm providing the URL here. With what it does is go and using the API, it try to get that passenger details. And what I'm doing is I'm passing that passenger ID in a dynamic query here, which is a 0. And this is the input parameter, input airline ID. So what this process does is it takes the ID in an argument the airline ID, and then it calls the API, and then it gives us a response. And what I'm doing is I'm taking that response and changing it, putting into out argument, which is the airline name along with the response. And if ever you do this, once you have created your automation, all you need to do is again right click on that and create a test case. You can also convert that, instead of using a create test case, you can also convert that workflow into a test case. So in this case, I am creating is as a new test case, going back here. And if you will see here, it will give us the same pattern, given then when, and all I'm doing is it will invoke your workflow. And in the verify, I'm verifying that the input that I'm giving here, which is the airplane, the ID, airline ID, and it is matching with the expected airline code. And how it is getting the data, I was using the entity in order to get that, which is here, I have explained here. I'm using the entity to get that one. So the bottom line here is, like what we did for RPA testing, the process almost remains the same. How you create your automation, click on that, convert that use case or create a test case, and then it will create a test case for you. And then if when you are ready to publish that case, you click on this one and it will automatically create a new NuGet package and upload that into your orchestrator. From there, you can create a test cases and test set logically group, which we have at a high level covered in our last meeting. You can logically group your test cases into a test set, and that's pretty much it. Once you will apply that, it will run your test case with all the data variation that you have given. And how you can do that, if you will run here, it will give you option. In this particular case, it is disabled, because I have not configured this particular test case with the test data variation. But once you do that, it will give you option to run this test case with the with your all your data variation. For example, run file with data variation, and it will let you choose how many data variations you want to choose. And then this test case will run along with all this variation. And finally, it will verify your behavior, whether the test case is passed and failed. And all those test results will be available in your orchestrator also. If you will go into your orchestrator, once your execution is done and you have published your, so everything will be available in under the testing, which is right here. So maybe if we'll get a chance, we will go continue this demo where I can actually show you how to publish this test case and show you all the execution and their test result also. This is maybe next 15 minutes. In the next meeting in part 4, we will cover that and we will start from there. But whether it's your API testing, whether it's SAP testing, whether it's web testing, the main points remain the same. The logic, the workflow remains the same. You create your automation, either you convert that workflow into a test case, or you add multiple test case into for that particular automation. And this is one of the good example that I follow whenever create a test automation, where it clearly defines that verify airline details, and then what is the expected is successful match. When you are passing the right credentials or the right airplane, this test case is about to match and pass it. In this case, I'm creating a passenger, but it is supposed to fail because I am passing some invalid arguments here. So that's how I define my test cases, but we can cover that in step 4 under best practices. And I can share 3 or 4 most commonly used expressions or the naming convention for your test cases. But the workflow, API testing, SAP testing, everything remains the same. The only thing which is different is the mobile testing. For that, I will not go in much details, but one important thing, if you're trying to automate mobile automations, you need to export one activity or under managed packages. You need to go into again official here and look for mobile. And then you will get this activity package, which is UiPath mobile automations. Once you do that, you will start seeing a menu item in your ribbon called the mobile automation. And what it does is it gives you a capability where you can click on mobile device manager. One thing that is required here is the mobile automations. You need a APM or APM. That is what there's multiple way you can pronounce it, but APM is one which provides you device forms For example, I want to test my application in iPhone 6, right? Or I want to use an Android. So APM provides you a different platform where you can use your integrate your APM server with the UiPath, and that is how you will get that. If we'll get a chance, maybe in step 4, or maybe we can have a separate session to cover the mobile testing. But that is how it can be done. The starting point is you need to get this activity. That's how, and then you need to set up something at the APM level. And once you do that, come into mobile device manager, and then you can provide the add a server here, which you will click on here, and then you can start click on this one. It will ask you to give the name and the APM URL. This is the APM server URL, and then you can select the platform, whether you want to use IS, give that name and the variations. That's how you will do the mobile testing. I'm not going to cover that in the next chapter in more details, but if get a chance, we will at least cover at a high level. But rest of them remains the same. SAP automation, I can show you a quick video here, and that what it does is I can show you at a high level what I was talking about. Everything remains the same. Here we have a workflow here, which is based upon creating a standard workflow in SAP, and this is what we discussed. If you will create a test case for the SAP, the behavior will still remain BDD. Let me pause it here for a minute. It is still the same: given, when, then. In given, you will provide all your test data. When is your workflow, which does the automation. And in the then section, you will verify whether your test case has been created or the expected behavior is what the actual that you're getting. So this is the same. You create your automation, you create either convert that workflow into a test case, or use round by creating a new test case. And if you will see here, we are doing that. Once you execute this workflow in the SAP automation, what it does is it will automatically open a SAP application, and it will start entering the required details, in this case, order type. So if you will see here, it logs into your SAP application, and then it will go into the next step, choose the order details, and then from here it will take you to the order details page, where by whatever the data variation you have chosen, it will keep adding those information, and click on save. And finally, once the automation process is successful, it will then go back and tell the use case, the test automation, if you will see that the expected value meets the actual value, which is 149, and that's how your test case is passed. Very simple. So whatever I have demonstrated in RPA testing, whether you go back to your automation mobile, you go to the mobile is a little bit different, whether you go into the web application, Windows application, API testing, SAP testing, everything remains the same. What matters is how you create your automation. And the data variations we have already covered. We have covered the test coverage. So whatever is left, again, if anybody is interested, we can spend next 15 minutes in the next part in going through, and I can demonstrate how it works end to end. With that, firstly, I apologize for going 20 minutes over the time. I'll take a pause here. Test automation is huge, and with the capabilities that you test suite provides, uh, is also there are so many things that you can do here. So it cannot be squeezed in one demo. We tried with going through from the very basics. I could have easily skipped the part where I have given you walkthrough about the environment setup. But believe me, this is the area where you will face more challenges. You will find so many articles in UiPath forms in YouTube, which will show you how to different kind of testing. But what you will have to navigate into different articles, jump to get your environment set up. And that is where I have spent most of 30 minutes in going through that, but you will find it later that how useful it is. So with that, I'll take a pause here, or I will see if we have still any questions that I can answer. Otherwise, we'll try to cover in our next chapter. And I really apologize for going 20 minutes over this one.
Yeah, so if everybody wants to, they can take themselves off mute. It looks like Naresh has a question.
Yes, Diana. Thanks, Atul, for the demo. A quick question. So, while we are doing the test automation for the process, right? So, the app does the application state matters, right? Suppose, say, the app that you mentioned, like for creating the checking account. Suppose I have a workflow which is just starting from the account creation page rather than login page, right? So, if I have to create a test scenario for in that case, if I have to create a test scenario for creating the check-in account, uh, so the application should be in the login stage. I mean, the bot has to log into the application and has to be on the proper page where it can select the account type and go ahead and create the selection. So how do we handle that application states, like when you're doing the test scenario, when you're testing it a particular scenario, how do you manage the application state?
Okay, great question. And that's the very likelihood that when we started, that's the challenge that we have. Firstly, it is not always true that I want to, like in this particular case, okay, when I start my automation, I normally, when as a good practice, I don't want to even like go into the details. Again, it is not a good practice. I mean, it depends upon, I will not say good practice, but it depends upon whether you want to start by simply creating an account or you want to start from the login process. I agree what you said, the later one. Normally we want to start by from the apply account. And in this example, what I'm doing here, this is was more for the RPA testing. So I am in my test case, I am again logging in every time and logging a log out after the end. But if you will see here, what I have did here is I am passing an argument called the UiPath browser here. So what you can do here is, let's say you need to still use something to open your application and log into that, right? And that may be covered as part of a different test case or as part of your setup, right? But after that, when you started executing case, what you can do here is, which I'm doing here, every time whether I'm creating a new account, apply new account, if you look into the arguments, I am taking an input argument as a browser. Similar way, I even am creating loan, I'm creating an argument as a browser. So what I'm doing is, as part of my setup process or as part of some test case, I'm assuming that the user is already logged in and it is taking that browser which has been used from the login, and I am simply you starting from there. Now there may be some test cases. Let's say, what if the previous test case or your setup has navigated to some other process, like the challenge that we have faced in today's demo. I was opening two different account, right? So make sure that using your setup account, you have processes defined here which will close any existing opened application or log out from that. And as a precaution here, what I'm doing is, when I'm starting from my process, no matter wherever you are in your application, it may be possible you are under account or you're under a different page. So first step I'm doing is navigating to the loans page, from where it makes sure that I have all my buttons or in the workflow. So those are the two things which I do, rather than specifying my browser or defining it here. I take is as an input argument, and that may vary from application to application.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Atul.
Thank you. Thanks for that's a very great question.
Any other questions? Feel free to take yourself off mute if you have any.
And whenever, if you will go into this recording, pay attention to the small points that I mentioned, because that is where you will struggle. For example, when you are like when we were creating those application running that, you have already opened that account, you have not accounted for that. When you're connecting the orchestrator, if you have not assigned the license. So those small few points are very important, because that is where majority of us will face the challenge. Not in order to while creating a test case. It's easy enough. UiPath has provided so much effort in making it the experience so smooth, but those small issues are very important that that you take care of.
Great. I don't see any other questions. Atul, is there any advice you have for people preparing for next week's session?
No, I mean, what I'll suggest is try these things out, which we have covered in first 2 and 3 sessions. Session number 4 is all about discussions. I'm not going to go in more details. If we have enough audience who wants to continue from here, we will do that. Otherwise, it is all a open discussion. If you are doing some automation or test automation, you are facing some challenges, we can discuss that. The next session is a very good platform to discuss any challenge that you have faced in the past 3 events, or even if you have a use case that you want to discuss, because there will be a lot of MVPs that will join that session. Not only me, we will have a lot of experts that can help you in the challenge that you are facing, or if even if you are starting your test automation journey, we'll be more than happy to help you out. So I will highly recommend to join the next session. No more talkings, no more presentation. It is all will be going to be open discussion. And you can also see that the various MVPs who are expert in this area, they can talk and share their experience. Some, like, I mean, automation is huge. I mean, this area is huge. Everyone has a different way of doing that, right? For example, if I will open a discussion here about creating a name for a use case, right? I mean, the test case, I bet you will hear so many different opinions. How should we create this test case name? It matters a lot, because that is how you identify whether you have get enough coverage or not. So I highly recommend that please join the next session, because it is that session is totally for you, and we want to hear back from you. What are your opinions about this developer series that we are doing? What challenges that you are facing, and how we can fine tune on the areas that are not covered as a general, like, I mean, in these this slides on in your academy.
Great. Thank you so much.
Most welcome, Diane. Thank you so much everyone for again joining, and apologize. We almost like went 30 minutes over that. So please accept our apologies for that.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thank you.